Hi, welcome back to another video in the Game Lab on code.org. In this video, we'll be talking about few of the possible extensions we could work on adding into our game. So the first thing we could work on is having multiple obstacles falling down instead of just one of the obstacles falling down. The idea to do this is quite simple. Consider this to be our screen. And right now we have an obstacle being placed at the top of our screen before it starts moving down. Instead of placing just one obstacle, we could place multiple obstacles at a random X and Y value above the screen. And then we can slowly start moving the obstacle downwards onto our screen. Since the distance between all the obstacles are of different Y values, the time taken for each of the obstacle to be visible on the screen will be different. In this way, we can have multiple obstacles falling down from the top of our screen. The next thing we could work on is letting our player fire multiple missiles at the same time. To do this, we will require the use of a list or an array. A list or an array is like your cookie jar at home. You have a cookie jar at home that holds multiple cookies, right? And each time you can take out a cookie from the cookie jar and then replace it with another cookie, right? So let's say this is a plain cookie jar. Okay. Now, the plain cookie jar will hold the missiles. It'll hold a bunch of missiles. And every time a player fires a missile, one of the missiles from the cookie jar is taken away. And once the player fires all the missiles from the cookie jar, what we'll do is we will reload the cookie jar with missiles again, thereby allowing the player to fire at the obstacles. Next thing we could work on is having multiple backgrounds into our game. Right now, we only have one background that is repeating over and over again. But instead of just one background, what if we could have multiple backgrounds in our game, allowing the player to seem as though the player is moving across various parts of the galaxy? We could use a random number, the random number block, to help in doing this. We could just randomly pick one of the backgrounds or one of the frames in the background sprite to display as the background on which the player is moving. Next thing you could work on is a boss fight. Now, boss fights are one of the most interesting things in a game. It's always cool to fight a boss in the game. So the idea of a boss fight over here could be like a huge meteorite falling down from the top of our screen. Say something like this. And the meteorite has a health bar. Something like this. Now, every time the player shoots the meteorite, a small portion of the health of the meteorite is reduced. In this way, we can keep reducing the health of the meteorite each time the player fires at the meteorite. And once the health of the meteorite goes to 0, we can destroy the meteorite. Now, this could be an example of one of the boss fights in the game. You could think of different boss fights that could make the game even more challenging to play. The next thing we could think about is giving power-ups. Now, since there is a boss fight, power-ups will play a crucial role in the game. You can have multiple kinds of power-ups. You can have a power-up which can launch a special missile. You can have a power-up that can increase the score by a multiplier. You can have a power up that can give in more speed to the movement of the player. And you can think of different kinds of power up. For example, let's take the power up of being able to shoot a special missile. In order to do this, the player will have to collect some points or an item, which will allow the player to be able to fire that special missile. Now, this special missile is only available once the player gets that item or the power up in the game. And the missile is launched by pressing another key on the keyboard. It's not going to be the space key, which is used to fire the missile. Rather, it's going to be a different key on the keyboard, which is only enabled when the player picks up the power up. So these are a bunch of the few extensions that we could think about, that you can think about and apply it into your game. You can also feel free to go ahead and use your own imagination to come up with your own extensions, with your own power-ups, with your own boss fights, backgrounds, different kinds of missiles, obstacles, or you can think about adding characters into the game who have some kind of text, who speak something, like an introduction or anything of that sort. You can always feel free to run your imagination wild and come up with ideas to add on to your game.